Hello and welcome to the Data Dialogue. In this episode, I'm joined by Saurav Gupta, a sales engineer for IntraSystems and indeed a close friend of mine. So, hello and thank you for joining me, Saurav.
Thank you, John, for having me here, and it's indeed a pleasure to speak to you.
We're going to be talking about performance, scalability, efficiency, and productivity, and particularly how this can be achieved by IntraSystems Iris, focusing on the role of the developer in achieving these goals. So, a nice easy one for you, Saurav, to start off with. Can you explain why higher performance, scalability, and resource efficiency is so important for businesses today?
The most important consideration businesses are having, especially when you see the amount of data that organizations are generating, both structured and unstructured, which means there is a need for higher performance and scalability across any business work in any vertical, whether be it finance or retail. And amount of data that organizations are generating, the reality is that they're not able to keep pace in terms of utilizing that data. And the other aspect of it, as they generate more and more data, how do they actually do their resource efficiencies? And that's pretty much driven the movement into the cloud, where organizations are able to drive many more efficiencies as opposed to what they were doing in the traditional infrastructures. So I think it's the most important thing which is happening now.
Thanks, Saurav. How do you think this is achieved with IntraSystems Iris? What's different about IntraSystems Iris in enabling organizations to meet these functional goals?
The most important thing is what IntraSystems Iris helps the organization is make their data most connected and accessible and high performing. So if you look at it, databases have been there for the last 40, 50 years. But the most important thing, as we just talked about, with so much amounts of data and different kinds of data being generated, the challenge that every organization has is how they can do more with the data without having complexities of managing that data. And I think this is the most important feature of our database platform, IntraSystems Iris, because unlike other platforms, it's the most connected and accessible database platform which can handle multiple workloads and can also support transactions and analytics within the same data store. And we do it through various capabilities that we have in the platform. But I think the most important feature which makes us stand out is we do it with a single platform, which makes it easier for organization to achieve these objectives without having to address the complexities of multiple data stores and synchronizing data across all those stores.
Okay, thanks, Saurav. Now, picking up on one of these aspects, I think something that's often right at the top of people's minds is performance, and particularly speed of consumption of data and speed of querying data. And in respect to actually getting a bit more information about performance and how the whole ecosystem of databases operates in this field, I know that we've done some work on a speed test that's open source and is available for people to pick up and try themselves. Could you tell me a little bit about what this is and how it works?
So the main reason why we wanted to do this is because one of the most critical use case that we try to address with our data platform is how we can ingest large amounts of data and query at the same time to help organizations make real-time decisions in their businesses. So the whole ethos of the speed test that we designed was to really benchmark performance of our database as opposed to all other databases which are available either in cloud native architectures or other open source databases that organizations currently use. And our speed test was designed to address this use case that if I am ingesting large amounts of data, but most critically, it's not about just ingesting that large amounts of data. It's about analyzing the data in real time then how well we perform against our peers. So we designed the speed test. We first did it against some of the popular databases which are available in the market, and then we started extending to other databases. The whole idea was that without any, let's say, performance tuning or things like that, if we take a multi-workload scenario of ingesting simplistic data, large volumes, and analyzing it in real time, then how do we perform against our peers? And I think so we were surprised in some way because our performance in comparison to some of the databases out there for this use case was in some cases 200%, 300%. So we pretty much actually could run or ingest large amounts of data as compared to our peers, run the queries in least possible time, and we were showing efficiencies of more than 100 to 200% consistently when compared with our peers. So I think so it was a very important thing for us to look at it. Okay, if we want to help organizations to take more value out of their data in real time, then the most significant need that organizations would have is how does this data perform in real time, where you are ingesting large amounts of data, but at the same time analyzing it to make decisions in real time, as opposed to doing analytics in retrospective manner, which most of the organizations currently already do.
Yeah, and I think it's a common problem that people have, which is figuring out an architecture which enables them to address sort of translytic workloads. So this fusion of operational transactional activity and the need to undertake analytics that give meaning to the information you're pulling out of those transactional data sets rapidly, accurately, and as quickly as possible. Now, the fact that historically people still are using a variety of different platforms, side-loading data, there's impedance, there's lag between those in order to be able to surface information into analytic platforms. The fact that InterSystems Iris supports this sort of concurrent models of activity, the transactional and the analytical, together is interesting. And indeed, if we look at the speed test, and one thing I noted, so some of the latest updates against a variety of the most popular platforms that people are using in the cloud, we're seeing performance advantages for InterSystems Iris, not just of the 100 or 200%, but even to 600 or 6 or 7 times as fast in terms of the amount of data consumed, in terms of the query rate on that data that InterSystems Iris supports. And also the other aspect that we've not discussed yet, being scalability, the overall amount of data that we can get into the platform without it starting to sort of drop in terms of its ability to consume information. So that I think is really interesting to look at. And in fact, the link to the speed test is via the Data Excellence blog that is on the InterSystems website. So if you go to the InterSystems website, search for the Data Excellence blog, and then within that there's an entry for the open source speed test. So it discusses how the speed test is constructed. It looks at some of the results that we've achieved from that, and you can download and run this thing yourself. And indeed, you can tune the activity to more appropriately reflect the workload that you might have as an organization. So we have quite a sort of strong developer ethos within InterSystems, and there's a very active developer community which not only shares experiences about working with InterSystems Iris and other InterSystems technology, but also there's a large pool of open source components and applications that people are sharing within the platform. Saurav, what would you say are the strengths of the developer community, particularly when it comes to enabling people to leverage InterSystems Iris?
I think so. The most important thing is it's one-stop shop for developers working on Inform or InterSystems technology to exchange their issues, to write about certain things which they have already accomplished and share it with the larger community so that everybody can benefit from it. But even more important, I think so, is that even though it is the developer community open to everybody who wants to register themselves, but this community is also the community that internally within InterSystems, people like us or our product architect use this developer community to publish articles to some of the stuff that we might be involved in, and we closely watch if there are some questions being asked which need answers. So the whole idea is that to create a very vibrant developer community on InterSystems technology, and anybody who is either already using our technology or getting onboarded to our technology, this is one place where they can find all the resources, whether it's best practices, some of the articles which our product architects write around architectures, some of the tools which people need to be able to make them much more efficient. So it's one-stop shop for all our developers to use the best possible use of InterSystems technology.
Okay, thanks for that, Saurav. Previously, we briefly talked about some of the sort of architectural advantages of using InterSystems Iris. Saurav, what would you say are the advantages to the individual developer for using InterSystems Iris as a platform to create applications on?
I think so. The biggest advantage is speed to value. So I think so in modern age, where if you look at it today, if you look at developer, the way he or she works, is they would actually go into cloud, provision an instance, and start writing code, as opposed to in old times where essentially if they were writing code, there were so many elements involved in writing a piece of code that there was big challenges before essentially they produced code which could be run in production environment. These days, it's all about having access to everything. And I think so what InterSystems Iris brings to that table is that simplicity, which gels quite well with the whole ethos of the cloud environment as well, where the whole idea is to make it simpler for people to provision their infrastructure and use different services. Similarly, that's the main ethos of our platform. We provide a database platform which comes in with inbuilt integration framework, which comes in with inbuilt analytical capabilities, and which comes in with inbuilt API management capabilities. So what it means is that if a developer is developing an application for a particular problem that he's trying to solve for an enterprise organization or for the community, then essentially that application, once that application is written in our technology using our database, then if he needs to connect to any other application or he needs to make the data stored in our database platform to any other application, then all the tools and utilities are already with him. He doesn't have to work on multiple stacks of technologies to make his application work in an enterprise environment, because his application won't be the only application working in that environment. And how he makes an application the most connected and accessible application, we provide all capabilities in a single platform, easy to deploy, easy to manage, with high availability and resilience built into the platform. And as I said, the two benchmarks or hallmarks of our technology is simplicity, which brings in speed to value.
Yes, thanks, Saurav. I think that simplicity and that enabling people to get value quickly from working with InterSystems Iris is one of the key hallmarks of the platform. So making the complex things simple to do, simple to work with. I mean, part of that simplification is obviously the tools and the languages that are available as part of the platform. So the fact that you can access everything via VS Code as probably the most commonly used IDE currently across all sort of technology ecosystems, and the fact that you can build those applications using Python within VS Code, running natively close to the data. Obviously, there's a very wide pool of people who understand Python, but it also, apart from that level of understanding, that depth of understanding in the developer community, the fact that we can build Python-based applications close to this sort of multi-model translytic platform that we've just talked about. What would you say, Saurav, are the key hallmarks of building in Python in conjunction with InterSystems Iris that you think are probably the most valuable?
I think so. The most important thing is Arc support for Python allows any application written in Python run closest to the data, which gives them the fastest access to data and guarantees highest performance. So I think that that's the most important thing. And also, I think so. The other thing is that if you look at it in past few years, as more and more people have been working on machine learning and artificial intelligence, where Python is the de facto standard for developing those machine learning algorithms and things like that, you have a vast pool of resources who are well versed with this language. And then if we can actually build an operational application in Python, as well as build on top of that machine learning and AI capabilities again in Python, it again comes back to the same thing. It simplifies the developer's job, where essentially he's using one database platform and one language, which is Python, in terms of writing his both operational and a machine learning based application. And it's running closest to the data, which gives him the most highly performant access to the data. Again, further translates to what is called, what we again keep on emphasizing, keep it simple, which makes it easier to deploy and is speed to value.
Yeah, thanks for that, Saurav. So we've talked a little bit about the architectural advantages of InterSystems Iris. We've talked a bit about why developers can gain some advantage from this. For those people whose sort of interest has been piqued a bit, could you talk a little bit about the process of migrating to InterSystems Iris?
Certainly. We have made this process very simple for all our existing customers who are already using our previous version of database technology, Cache and Ensemble. And what we have done is, so as long as, let's say, you are on some of our recent versions of Cache or Ensemble, which is probably 2-3 years, 2017 or 18, then we allow you to do in-place upgrades, which means like how you have been in the past upgrading from one version of Cache to another version of Cache, you could move to InterSystems Iris in exactly the same way, assuming that you are running on some of the recent versions of Cache or Ensemble. But even beyond that, if essentially you were trying to migrate to InterSystems Iris, and maybe you're running on a previous version or a very old version of our technology still, it's very easy to migrate because essentially, if you ask me, one of the things how we store data internally, which is our multidimensional array, is still the most efficient way of storing data. And guess what? That's something which has not changed. So if your application is already running on Cache and Ensemble, then if you want to migrate to InterSystems Iris, it's very straightforward process. And we have now been doing this process with a lot of our customers and partners for the last 3 years, which has also allowed us to create what we call as an adoption guide, which is actually an outcome of all the experiences that we have had in migrating our existing customers to InterSystems Iris in our current customer base. So the whole idea is to make sure that whatever we learn on the field, we can share it with the larger community. So if you are running on Cache or Ensemble, then trust me, moving to Iris is almost like moving to another version of Cache because we have made it for you in terms of migrating to InterSystems Iris. But what you get as part of InterSystems Iris is a lot more capabilities, a far better performance, and also the first-class citizen capabilities to work in an environment of cloud, be it running on any kind of hardware, be it physical, virtual machines, containers, could be anything. And also, if there are customers who have, let's say, other databases like Postgres or any other open source databases who are running into these limitations with their existing databases, and if they want to move to InterSystems Iris, we are a SQL compliant database. We are a multimodal database, so we can take data in any form. Flat files, SQL, JSON, XML, could be any format. And also because we are SQL compliant, you could lift and shift any schema from another third-party database platform into InterSystems Iris. And in certain technology stacks like SQL Server or Sybase, we also have extensions which allow you to migrate the stored procedures written in that database technology like T-SQL into InterSystems Iris without having to rewrite any logic.
Thanks, Sarah. Yes, I mean, I think I completely agree that InterSystems has done a lot of work to make the adoption of Iris as simple and as easy and as painless as possible, whether that, as you say, that's coming from older versions of InterSystems technology or from other platforms. To my mind, I think one of the biggest advantages of doing so, and I think this comes back to where we started this conversation today, was all about simplicity. InterSystems Iris is all about ensuring that you have the simplest possible architecture, taking complexity out of the solutions, and therefore making or enabling organizations to be more adaptable, more agile, deliver better benefit at lower cost more rapidly. Anyway, so I think it's time to call it a day there now, Saurav. So thanks for speaking to me today. Join me again for another edition of the Data Dialogue. Goodbye.